This Christmas, Pepsi would like to help you celebrate the holidays with a chance of winning a present from Mario in the Pepsi Nintendo Holiday Game, where you could win one of thousands of terrific Nintendo prizes. Look for details on how to win your Nintendo prize wherever you see these Pepsi holiday displays.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special seasonal episode of Player One Start. So let's rewind the clock back to 1991. I am 5 years old, and my favorite game in the world is Super Mario Bros. 3 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I must have played that game for hours on end as a kid, and even up until being 5 years old, I can remember that being one of the first games that I could ever remember playing. That and Duck Hunt, I really like that game too. But one of the things that I have to remember back then was I wasn't really that good at video games. You hand this game off to a 5-year-old today, and they're going to have problems with it. Getting through the first stage, I think by 5 years old, I was probably able to do that. I could get through maybe the second stage, but beyond that, I couldn't really do it. I enjoyed playing the game, but I just wasn't very good at it. I really couldn't beat it. As frustrating as that sounds, you might have to wonder, why did that become one of my favorite games? Well, I have 3 older brothers, and one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was watching them play video games, and one of those games that they always played was Super Mario Bros. 3. I enjoyed watching them play that game so much because I was watching them play, and I was learning. I was learning how to get better at the game. They, through talking with their friends or maybe seeing it in magazines, had found out certain ways to kind of cheat the game a little bit. They found out that in level 3, you can get a warp whistle. They also found out that in the first castle, you can get another warp whistle. And so that just kind of amazed me that, oh, there's more to the game than what's on the screen. You can actually find things around the area. And so in a roundabout way, my brothers helped encourage me and give me support to get better in the game. And of course, when you're 5 years old, there are very few priorities in your life. Video gaming was probably a big one for me. But more so than just the game, I think what I enjoyed more out of it was, that was one of the few ways in which my older brothers, who there's an age gap between me and my oldest brother, so we didn't really interact that much, but in the game, that was something we did together. So that kind of, it reinforced my love of the game because it allowed me to spend more time with my older brothers. So getting back to Christmas Eve, 1991. Sometime that evening, a 5-year-old really doesn't have a concept of time, but sometime in that evening, my parents allowed us to at least open one gift. I think maybe we opened up more, but Santa still hadn't come yet, so there was probably more gifts to open later. But we had a little family Christmas that evening after some dinner. My 2 oldest brothers opened up a gift, and it was a Super Nintendo. I still have that Super Nintendo. In fact, here it is. It's a little miscolored, but it has seen a lot of good use, and in fact is still being used even to this day. Something I don't think my parents really intended when they bought it, but they are getting their money's worth at least. As a 5-year-old, this blew my mind. Not only was there a Nintendo, which I loved, with Super Mario Bros. 3, there was a Super Nintendo. That word super just amplifies it by 1,000 in a 5-year-old's mind, at least in my mind at the time. And it also came with a game, Super Mario World. Now my mind is blown. I'm like, okay, Super Mario Bros. 3, love that game. Super Mario World? Oh, the possibilities were endless. What could possibly, they could fit a whole world in this cartridge? And, wait, what? Mario's riding a dinosaur? Okay, now I have to play this game. Now I am super stoked. And as you can imagine, when a 5-year-old gets super excited, you'll see, well, there's tons of YouTube videos out there already, you'll see exactly the excitement that I would have had back then. But this wasn't my gift. This was a gift for my older brothers. And of course, one thing that you realize very quickly when you're the youngest in a family of 4 kids, your turn is always last. You know, they'll arrange it like, oh, we'll give you a chance. Let's do it by age. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. So they're like, okay, let's do it by height. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Oh. So I was always last. That's just the way it was. I had come to accept that, but I'm sure I probably put up more of a fight back then than I would have. But they worked out a deal with me to calm me down, to say, okay, let's take turns. So first, the oldest will get a turn, then second oldest, and then third, and then I would be last. What I didn't realize is that we still had church to go to later on that night. It's Christmas Eve, and we always went to midnight service. One thing I didn't realize was the clock was ever creeping closer to when we had to leave for church. And what my brothers had planned out was everybody would get a turn, but when it came to my turn, we'd have to go to church. Mom and Dad would come in, they would take us, and I would throw a fit, and it would be awesome. Welcome to half of my childhood. So yes, that inevitable time comes in. It's just about to be my turn. The brother ahead of me, he's not quite done with his turn yet. When my parents walk in and say, okay, time for church. Now, looking back on this, I probably have a more rose-colored glasses view of everything, everything in the past was like, oh, I was probably fine with it. I probably put up a little bit of a fuss, but nothing too much. I imagine a tantrum that World War III wouldn't have caused. I mean, I was livid. Very few permanent memories of that time period still exist in my head. This one, I remember putting up kind of a fight. But eventually, of course, I have to go to church, so we ended up leaving. And of course, I was told I was going to get another turn later. Oh, maybe when we get back from church. Well, after we get back from church, it was bedtime. I knew that. So, kind of a fond childhood memory, I guess, but this isn't a good tale at all. This is about how three of my older brothers were very mean to me. But the story does take a turn. So, fast forward sometime after Christmas. I do finally get a turn. I do play Super Mario World, and it is awesome. But I get stuck at Donut Plains 1. Because I see my brothers do something I couldn't wrap my head around. Mario could fly in this game, and I remember he could fly in Super Mario Bros. 3. All you do is get a running start, you take off, and you keep pressing the buttons so you can keep jumping and flying. But in this game, it's different, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I would go to run, I would take off, I'd fly up in the air, and then I'd immediately crash back down. And I found it overwhelmingly frustrating. So much so that I think I went back and played more Nintendo games that I was used to. The games that I'm more familiar with. Doesn't sound like I do that in modern days. And I took over the console that my brothers didn't really care about anymore. Oh, Nintendo? Oh, that's old. That's, outdated. That is obscure. We don't want to play that anymore. Anyone playing Nintendo, original Nintendo? Oh, they're not cool anymore. Well, thankfully, I grew up not really caring what other people thought about me, so I decided to play the Nintendo. My advantages that I thought were, nobody wants to play it. I have it all to myself. So I don't have to wait for my brothers to play it. Of course, there was a little bit of, give and take in there, but for the most part, I could get it hooked up in my room. I didn't have to go to someone else's room to play it. I mean, think about that for a 5-year-old. That was awesome. So you can really say this was where it sparked my interest in retro gaming. But let's go back to the Super Nintendo. I'm playing Super Mario World, I'm getting frustrated, and something happens. One of my brothers sees that I am struggling with the game. I can't figure out how to get Mario to fly, and I am getting just beyond ticked. There were a lot of thrown controllers in my house, so they see I'm getting frustrated. And I don't know if this was out of preservation to where I wouldn't throw the controller, but my brother sat down and showed me how to make Mario fly. And with extraordinary patience for, an 11 or a 10 or 11-year-old teaching a 5-year-old how to do something, he taught me how to fly. And I think that's really something that hits me even still to this day is it's not really necessarily the games that I love. I am not just playing these games because I remembered playing them in the past. I remember how these games made me feel. How gaming brought me together and closer to friends. I was very shy as a kid, and it was kind of likewise the other way. A lot of people didn't really approach me to make their friend. I was the shy, awkward kid. It was hard for me to make friends back then. But gaming, well, what are you playing there, Tyler? Can I play it with you? Or, hey, I see you're struggling with this, let me help you with this. This was the dawn of what I remember being my social life back then. And I think it brought us together closer as a family. So you kind of see the two extremes of my brother saying, oh, this will be great. Tyler will throw a tantrum right before church. Maybe we won't have to go to church if he throws a big enough tantrum, to let me help you with that. And I can't imagine a stronger story to share with you all at Christmas. That is what gaming means to me. I know this is coming a little bit belated this year, but I do want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and my hope is you find a game to play with someone meaningful in your life. Thank you so much for your support throughout this year. I look forward to bringing you more stuff throughout the following years. And I'll see you next time, here on Player One Start. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.